All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics on this Labor Day weekend. We join you now from the newsroom as we make room for our new main studio here at News 8. We want to start this week with a new court fight over abortion here in Indiana. We're now less than 2 weeks from Indiana's near total ban on abortion taking effect. This week, a group of abortion providers filed suit in Monroe County, hoping a judge there will block enforcement of the law. The lawsuit, backed by the ACLU, claims the new law violates Indiana's Constitution protections for the right to privacy and also the guarantee of equal privileges.
Any right that might exist in the Indiana Constitution that could be argued to protect the right to abortion can still be impinged upon if you have a compelling governmental interest. And the Supreme Court has held categorically that protecting unborn life is such an interest.
This 50-year precedent was unraveled before our eyes and is going to be removed for Hoosiers in Indiana. This lawsuit is going to stand up and fight for Hoosiers and to make sure that we have equal access and equal access to right to privacy in Indiana going forward.
The law is set to take effect on September 15th. Meanwhile, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita says he plans to vigorously fight the ACLU's lawsuit. Rokita, who publicly supported a law with no exceptions for rape or incest, argues Indiana's Constitution does not provide a right to an abortion.
Quite simply put, the left can't stand a culture of life. And along with all the progress and protections that we've secured in the pro-life movement to date. But Hoosiers themselves respect and value all lives, including the lives of the unborn, the most vulnerable among us. The text, history, and structure of our Constitution excludes any serious argument that abortion is a fundamental right in our states.
Indiana's largest medical provider is taking a very public stance on the law. IU Health says it will do everything possible to help women who qualify for an abortion. They also claim the ban has already cost them future employees. News 8's government reporter Garrett Berquist has that part of our coverage.
IU Health officials say their clinicians will not directly refer people out of state for abortions, but they say there's nothing in the new law that prevents them from providing information about other options, which might lead someone to a third party that could then refer them to an out-of-state provider.
Health system officials say they will continue to provide abortion services to the extent the new state law allows. Teams of clinicians, lawyers, and ethicists will be on call around the clock to help doctors do so. IU Health will not provide transportation to other states to get an abortion.
Providing information to patients is permitted on where to obtain legal abortion services. And so we have that information that's available to give to patients who are seeking those services who do not meet the exception criteria set forth in Senate Bill 1.
The new law bans nearly all abortions with very limited exceptions. It doesn't take effect for another 2 weeks, but IU Health says the law has already caused potential new employees to skip coming to work in Indiana.
Officials say they're aware of the lawsuit seeking to block the new abortion law, but they say they're operating under the assumption that the new law will take effect on September 15th as scheduled. As a reminder, until then, we are still under Indiana's old abortion law, which allows abortions for any reason up to about 20 weeks into pregnancy. Garrett Bergquist, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
We turn now to the FBI's search that seized top-secret documents from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. The Department of Justice on Friday gave more details on what agents found. It includes documents marked classified, secret, or top secret, and 43 folders marked classified, but with no documents in them. there are enormous questions surrounding what's in those documents and where they were stored. One person with firsthand knowledge about those types of documents is Indiana Democrat Andre Carson, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee.
Congressman, you serve on the House Intelligence Committee. Have you had a chance to review the affidavit from the Mar-a-Lago search? What's your reaction to the content?
Not yet, but we will be meeting very soon. I think it concerns me. I think it concerns me anytime you have a U.S. president who is a former U.S. president who is in possession of TS and SCI documents for whatever reason in his or her personal home. If that were me, please believe there would have been chaos by now had I had those documents. But the documents that I look at, I go to the SCIF, the secure area at the Capitol, and look at those documents, or if I go to the FBI, if I go to their SCIF or the CIA SCIF, I follow proper protocol, and the president should do the same.
Has the FBI briefed you on this, and if so, what light can you shed on that?
Well, I respect the FBI as a law enforcement agency and as an important law enforcement agency, so I don't want to interfere in their job. I'll continue to do my work as a chair of the subcommittee on counterterrorism, counterintelligence. We'll be holding a series of hearings in the next few weeks, specifically dealing with foreign influence in our government, so stay tuned.
Do you share any of the concerns that have been floated that some of the documents at Mar-a-Lago might have had to do with our nuclear secrets?
Oh, always. I'm always deeply concerned about it. I mean, anytime that you have that kind of top secret information that could be compromised, especially given the fact that the president failed to criticize Russia. He was constantly appealing to Russia. We know that Russia has been a constant supplier of nuclear armament to the Iranian government. It always gives me concerns.
A lot of the op-ed writers, of course, been all over the place on this. In your opinion, is this more of an issue of just plain negligence and sloppiness due to, President not really coming to terms with the fact that he had lost, or do you think this taking the documents to Mar-a-Lago was deliberate?
Well, I think all the above. I think it was deliberate. I think it was arrogance. I think it was sloppiness. I think it was negligence, and I think it was a sense of entitlement that former President Trump has shown over and over, in a disregard and a disrespect toward our intelligence community.
Should these documents be subject to attorney-client privilege?
Well, I think to the degree that is allowed, but I think that Donald Trump has disrespected our legal system, our justice system, our intel community and law enforcement community to the degree that he has, I think, damaged the spirit of the attorney-client privilege in this regard. Right now, I think he's in violation of the Espionage Act.
So, given on that you said you think he's in violation, do you think he should be criminally charged?
That we've yet to determine that, but I think he's on the periphery of criminal charges.
All right, coming up, we bring in Indiana's best political team to talk the final stretch to the November elections. And the new poll claiming Indiana's Senate race is a dead heat. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics, as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Kip Tu, former Indiana Democratic Party chairman, and Tom John, former chairman of the Marion County Republican Party. Good to see you both. This is Labor Day weekend, the start of the busiest stretch of the campaign season, as you guys very well know. So let's talk campaigns. Starting with the U.S. Senate Democratic candidate, Tom McDermott, is now touting a poll, guys, this week that has him 3 points behind Republican Todd Young within the margin of error. Now, Kip, we'll go to you first this week. Is this race really that close, in your opinion?
Well, look, Change Research was the pollster. They're a very legitimate polling firm. They're Tom's polling firm. I know people that work at that firm. I think they are completely legitimate. I'm not sure that it's not a bit of an outlier as a poll, but I think it does show that there's been some movement in this race. And look, Todd Young has dual problems, right? He's trying to, straddle the fence between MAGA and non-MAGA, and that ticks off the MAGA folks. He's been ardently anti-choice, no exceptions. And I think both of those things are working against his favor in this race. And Tom McDermott has a real shot at this thing.
Tom, no outside analysts have this race anywhere near competitive, and this poll hasn't really moved them.
Yeah, so for one, I want to be super clear. When Kip said Tom, he meant Mayor McDermott, not my pollster, because I wouldn't use this pollster.
Okay.
They're a polling firm from California that they do not have a good history in Indiana. They're a firm that, frankly, a failing campaign has brought in to try and gin things up. And the recent history is not good. In 2020, they had Woody Meyer down 6. He lost by 24. In 2020, they also had Representative Sparks down by 5. She won by 4. I mean, this really is the quintessential. You're trying to throw anything at the wall and see what sticks from the McDermott campaign perspective. And I get that because he's outraised. Todd Young has $7 million cash on hand. The McDermott campaign has $100,000 cash on hand. And so you're looking at one legitimate national senatorial campaign, and you're looking at one that's nascent and never really gotten off the ground. So then you add in the fact that, yes, the ads are a good example that Todd Young's doing what he's supposed to do. The community and the public is upset with Joe Biden and the way he's handled a lot of issues ranging from inflation to energy to the borders.
So Tom,
and Todd Young speaking to those issues because it's a referendum on the president.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you agree that there are, so many Republicans who are not happy with Todd Young?
Todd Young, I think, is still the rock star or one of the rock stars of Indiana politics and well respected, both in this state and in other places. And I'm not worried about Republicans coming out and voting for Todd Young.
Kip, your thoughts on that? We've heard from some, as the president calls them, MAGA Republicans that aren't very pleased with the senator.
Well, number one, I think that my partner Tom, John, doth protest too much when it comes to that. When it comes to that poll, I think they have reason to be worried. I think that they would like this to be a referendum on Joe Biden, but the former president of the United States wants to making it all about him as he did when he was president of the United States. Everything, all the time, he needed to be in the press. He couldn't stand it when he wasn't in the press, and here we have it again. And Todd Young is in his shadow, and the question is he subservient enough to this president for the MAGA folks to support Todd Young? I don't know. It remains to be seen. That the one flaw in that poll I would say is it didn't include the Libertarian. It'd be interesting to know how many Republicans are going to vote for the Libertarian. We found out in the last election cycle that the Libertarian actually outpolled our nominee in 30 counties. So the Libertarian could be a real wild card in this race this year.
Yeah, who it might help and who it might hurt is still to be determined. Another statewide race, gentlemen, that we've been talking about and taking a close look at as Secretary of State. Democrats keep trying to paint GOP candidate Diego Morales as an election denier. Kip, what does Destiny Wells, the Democratic candidate, have to do to win this one?
I think this race is a virtual tie. I think Diego Morales is a fatally flawed candidate. He's got fired twice by the office he now seeks, fired by Todd Rokita of all people. So it seems to me that this one's wide open. Neither of the candidates are going to have enough money to have a really deep conversation with the voters in the state of Indiana. So I think election night we may be surprised at what happens here.
Tom, I'll get your response. Less than a minute left in this segment.
Well, I mean, honestly, this is an office that has been Republican dominated for years. Okay, there's this talking point of being fired. That's not the real case of what's there, and Todd Rokita and others have spoken to that. I think you're going to see this be the race that you typically see in these, where you're going to see the Republican win, and it's not going to be particularly close because they're not particularly well funded. And at the end of the day, Hoosiers trust Republicans.
All right, countdown is on. Gentlemen, stick with us. We'll be right back. We'll have much more All Indiana Politics coming up after the break. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics. Kip Two and Tom John still with us here. Kip, I know that Tom was saying that Hoosiers trust Republicans, and you were kind of fiery during the commercial break, so let's let you react to that.
Well, I mean, I think that history shows that Tom is right about that, but history is history now. We've had something very significant, actually two very significant things happen here in the last month. The first one was the Indiana legislature, in response to Dobbs, outlawed almost all abortions in the state. And I think that we've seen nationally and other places, in Kansas, in Alaska, in rural New York State, where Democrats have outperformed what people expected, and in Kansas in particular, the referendum failed. Mm-hmm. So what we see here, I think, is going to be a duplicate in Indiana, and we're going to see a great deal of surprises because Indiana has always been a pro-choice state, and other states in the interim here have attempted to do what Indiana has done in their legislature and have failed. Even West Virginia as a state couldn't get a total abortion ban passed. And so we've got what I think is a fundamental change in the electorate and a fundamental change in the dynamics of Indiana politics. And we're going to see how it plays out.
Well, that leads us to our next topic here. It is the abortion situation here in the state of Indiana. Tom, I'll get your response. Is that going to hurt Republicans come November?
We won't know. I mean, I'm going to take a little issue with what Kip said when he talks about Kansas. It's one thing to talk about amending your constitution, making that decision whether or not, versus whether you're going to vote for a candidate on a multitude of issues they represent you with respect to. So I don't think you can transfer that. I mean, when you talk about Alaska, Sarah Palin is a flawed candidate. She's always been a flawed candidate. And the fact is you had two Republicans and a Democrat, and you have ranked choice voting, and there's some chunk of Republicans that apparently preferred the Democrat over Palin. But that's hardly an indictment of Republicans overall. That's a candidate issue, which you always have in elections. So what this means for Indiana is I don't think very much, quite frankly, is I think a lot of Hoosiers are pro-life. A lot of Hoosiers will disagree with what the legislature did, but will they vote on it? That's an entirely different question. I think you'll find smaller groups of people that are necessarily voting on the issue. And it's been said, this isn't necessarily
have we learned, though,
issue.
anything from these special elections, though, Tom? Because to Kip's point, I mean, there were some surprises.
There have been, and there always have been surprises. And this year, you've seen people losing the primary, but they've lost for a variety of reasons, not just necessarily this issue. And so, as with so many things, the number one issue people tend to vote on is their pocketbooks. And right now, people in Indiana know that they need to see good leadership that is a contrast to what you see in Washington, D.C. with President Biden and with the Democrat House and Democrat Senate. And I think that's what will carry through.
Kip, I'll let you respond. Do you agree? You think that it's going to be more about money than it is about social issues?
Well, let me say this. I think Diego Morales is more like Sarah Palin than Tom wants to admit in that race. So that gives, and he's ardent anti-choice, and I think that we can't let him control the elections in the state of Indiana and become the Secretary of State. And so I think that that's going to be a critical issue as long as our candidate Destiny Wells can get her message out with respect to that, which I think she's going to be able to do. With respect to whether or not we're talking about lunch table or kitchen table issues. The price of gasoline has dropped for 70 days in a row.
Yes.
People are not feeling the same effects that they were earlier in the political season with respect to inflation. So I know Republicans want to talk about it because they don't want to talk about their former president being caught with classified documents and refusing to give them back. And they don't want to talk about abortion because both of those issues cut against them. And so they're going to try to make it an issue about inflation. And unfortunately for them, inflation's starting to ease.
Right. It's moving in the right direction. Speaking of the former president, Tom, is the former president hurting Republicans across the country, specifically here in the state of Indiana?
I think it's hard to tell, quite honestly. He, I think, is probably somebody that some segments will be happy with and others don't. And, it remains to be seen. He's had a mixed bag so far in his endorsements across the U.S. He hasn't had all the successes in primaries that he might have hoped to, particularly when you look at truly contested races.
Yeah.
And in the fall, does it really change anything, or do Republicans come vote for their candidates that they voted for in the primaries in the fall? And does it really not have much impact, which is where I'd tend to be.
Well, it's going to be interesting. And like I said earlier, the countdown is on. Labor Day weekend. Here we are, gentlemen. 8 weeks out, if that, less than that, actually. And all eyes on this election coming up. Gentlemen, always good to see you. Thank you so much for taking some time, and enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. Have a great rest of your holiday weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.